Hello and welcome to the sixth and final episode of our level editor tutorial series. In this episode we will tell you all about the mission script and how to add your own tiles to the randomization process for the game. To do so, we need to go back to our workspace editor, the place where we started our journey. Find the missions folder in the game's file structure on the left hand side of the window. Since the tile that we have been working on has been created using the jungle biome preset, we are going to copy the jungle mission file to our workspace. After you've made a copy of the survival jungle mission file, you can open it using any editor. The mission file is a simple text file that you can open with Notepad or anything else. In my case, I'm going to use the Notepad++. Let's go over all the sections one by one. The script parameter decides which script the game is going to use to set the rules for the entirety of the game. In this case, it's the survival_jungle.lua file. If you want to use a different rule set that we created, or a completely new one, then you will have to change this line. The localization ID value decides what kind of name this map is going to have in the game's menu. The map size parameter decides on the size of the entire game world. In this example, it is set to 6. The map generator algorithm always creates square maps from the available tiles. Value 6 here means that the map is going to have 6 tiles on each side of it. The tile that we have been creating is going to be randomly used during the generation process. Here is what it might look like. You have to remember that the map is put together from a limited number of tiles. Your tile might pick the short straw and not be taken into account during randomization. The next section of this file allows you to alter some rules of the map generation algorithm. The creature's volume minimum distance parameter describes the radius of a circle in which all the enemies are going to be called from. This is a safe zone that the player spawns in. A distance of 128 means that all creatures within 128 meter radius around the mech that is larger than one entire tile will get deleted in order to give the player a safe space to start their adventure. The creature volume density parameter affects how many of the random creature volumes that we have placed on our maps will be populated with actual creatures. A value of 1 means that all the random volumes are going to spawn a group of creatures. A value of 0.75 means that it's going to be only 75% of them. The parameters that you add to the tile spawn rules section will affect how the map generator treats each individual tile. The min_instances rule determines how many tiles of the given type must appear during the map generation process. The random weight parameter allows you to put emphasis on some tiles. For example, if you set it to 2, that given tile will have double the chance of being taken into account during the randomization process. The max instances parameter determines how many times the tile will be able to appear. If you set it to 1, it means that the tile might appear once or not at all. If you want to give your tile a little bit of special treatment, add it to the list and set your own rules for it. Next up, we've got the controls for ambient creature species. These are the small air and ground units that will spawn in randomly. These guys do not need the neutral unit volume to be placed anywhere on the map. They will simply spawn outside the visible area. In this section you can decide which units you actually want. So if you want to replace Quelvers with Rugwigs or Vesaurus with Vadamites, that's where you can do it. The next section of the mission file actually affects what kind of creatures spawn in the random volumes. First up, we have the neutral units section. This will decide what kind of neutral units will spawn in the neutral units volumes. We generally stick to only one species per biome, but there is nothing stopping you from adding more of these creatures. The regular units section will affect the random creature volumes that will spawn in enemies. You can copy and add sections from this part of the file in order to add more creatures into the mix. Also notice the 2 forward slashes in front of some of the lines. This is what we call commented lines. The game will not make an attempt to read those parts of the file. It's very useful for quickly turning off and on certain sections. Also notice the volume spawn ratio parameter. The higher that number, the higher the chance that the creature will spawn in a random volume. The liquid units and resource units sections affect their respective random volumes. They behave the same way as the regular units section. Choose the creature species, choose the volume spawn ratio, and you're ready to go. Sometimes when browsing our files, you will see sections that have been entirely removed. These are remnants of our old mechanics. For example, the Guardian Standard section affected what kind of creature would spawn next to a bio-anomaly. You could bring it back if you want. This next section, Mission Object Spawners, will affect where the bio-anomalies will spawn on your level. All the rules are explained within the file itself. Next up, we have the Grid Spawner section. This mostly regulates how the underground treasures spawn on your map. You can decide on minimum number of instances, maximum number of instances, and all the individual rewards that you could find underground using the geoscanner. These special treasures will spawn in on some of the empty grids that you left on the map. You can decide how much resources you want your random treasures to contain. If you want to create an underground loot fountain, this is the section for you. The last but perhaps the most important section is the random resources. In this section, you decide how many volumes of any given resource are going to spawn on the map and how dense they are going to be. If you really wanted to, you could even make your resource veins infinite. At the very end, there is the starting resources section. This will guarantee the player to find some starting resources within a certain radius of their spawn point. Make sure that you give your players enough resources to get a head start. You can also decide on the minimum and maximum size of the radius where these resources will spawn. Now you know everything you need to create your own maps and missions for the Riftbreaker. Have fun!